Out of the 6 members of the research team who volunteered to monitor Earth, I believe I am the only one still sane, Locke said, his long fingers folded neatly on the metal table. Of course, Agitok is expected to recover, so that number might soon increase to 2. Is that enough of a qualification for you? The 2 members of the Spinward Alliance sent to interview Locke exchanged puzzled looks before turning back to him. Locke didn't know who they were, but he knew what they were. The first one, clearly in charge, was a burly GUO race known for their hairy, physically imposing appearance, which belied their sharp intellect. The command crest he wore indicated a surprisingly high rank, which Locke hoped was a good sign. Perhaps his warning might be heeded. Locke had been expecting this visit after all. A report like his wouldn't go unnoticed by the higher-ups. The second individual was a thinry familian, a species even less physically capable than Locke's own talons. Locke could never distinguish between the familians. They all seemed like noodly tendrils stuffed into Alliance uniforms to him. Understand, Seeker Locke, that as a matter of protocol, we must determine why your rather alarming report deserves serious consideration. This is all being recorded, you know, the GUO stated, motioning to his partner, who held up a recording spool already whirring with activity. Please state your qualifications. At moments like these, Locke wished he could roll his eyes like the humans, but the large black ovals on his face remained still. It was all going to be by the book, not a good sign. Very well. I am Seeker Trachis Locke, 2nd rank, assigned to the observation vessel GG, which was tasked with evaluating the 3rd planet from the Sun in the Sol system, commonly known as Earth, Locke said. May I at least have the courtesy of an introduction before we proceed? Of course, and for the record, the GUO said, placing a thick hand on his barrel-like chest, I am Special Investigator Syak, 1st rank. This is my assistant, Investigator Lug, 5th rank. Now then, which office sent you? Locke asked. A 1st rank was a very good sign, but protocol should have required him to announce his specific assignment. That information doesn't need to be entered into the record. Syak replied, a very bad sign. Have my recommendations been reviewed by the ruling council or by Alliance Command? Locke asked. Seeker Locke, I find it hard to believe that a planet without hyperspace travel could pose the threat you describe in your report. If I am not convinced, I won't waste the time of my superiors with it, Syak said, folding his clawed hands on the table. If you want your report to go higher, you'll need to be quite convincing. Syak activated a metal sphere on the table, which hummed to life, projecting several holographic charts and data streams. We understand that the Terran technocracy began observing this planet a long time ago, several thousand years, I believe. The Vitan invasion of 4040 destroyed many of our records, but yes, we believe that's about right, Locke confirmed. The ruling council has always had an odd interest in the planet. Speculation ranges from long-term genetic experimentation to considerations of annexation. When the old council died and the new one took over, half the reason we were assigned to the planet was to discover why the previous regime was so invested in it. Do you have any theories on that interest? After what I've seen, I think some of them had an inkling of what the humans might be capable of as they reached their current level of development, Locke said. And what level is that? They are currently enjoying their first forays into fusion and nuclear power, have developed proto-AIs, and are rapidly advancing in robotics. But none of that is particularly notable, Locke explained. What's truly interesting is their global communication network, something they call the Internet. Internet? What's special about it? Does it move data unusually fast or efficiently? Is it particularly robust or resistant to infrastructure damage? Syak asked, now paying more attention. Oh, technologically, it's nothing special, just a primitive array of computational machines linked through cables, satellites, and transmitters. What's interesting is how the humans have integrated it. Integrated it? Yes, Locke nodded. Information networks are nothing new. Every species in the Alliance has them, as do those ravenous beasts in the Core Union. We send and receive research information, military reports, general news, and more. We pool the knowledge of 100 worlds to accelerate our research and keep our populations safe and informed. Humans do some of that too, but their primary use for their network seems different. What do they do with it then? Have you ever heard of a meme? A what? It's a sort of... Locke paused, tapping the table with a long gray finger as he thought. Mind virus, I suppose. So they're beginning to develop psionics? Syak asked. Locke shook his head. No, nothing like that. It's a picture, sometimes a song or a phrase. It's a thought that grips the mind, sometimes just a memory. It's difficult to define. The easiest way would be to show you, but... Locke cut himself off and shook his head. No, too dangerous. It's bad enough that you'll have secondary exposure when you see the others. Like a virus, it spreads quickly and mutates rapidly. You take the meme into your mind and then start to imagine it everywhere. Better to see the effects the memes have on our minds than the memes themselves. Let me show you the other members of the team. The Burham Institute was the finest mental recovery facility in the Terran technocracy, but its size was a downside. The time it took to get from the low-security wing, where Locke was recovering, to the high-security wing, where his comrades were held, was frustrating for both Lake and his interrogators. Even worse were the multiple security checkpoints they had to clear, even with SciFi's credentials. After all that, it was almost anticlimactic to find the first of Locke's survivors lazily sitting in his padded cell, perfectly serene. His institute jumpsuit hung loosely on a body frail, even by Terran standards. "He's not dangerous," Locke said as the three entered the cell. "He's here only as a precaution and for isolation. We're worried that repeated exposure to him could be mentally infectious." Locke turned to the skinny gray alien. "Hello, Vidic. How are you today?" "Cooked." "Absolutely cooked," Vidic mumbled. "Tried to flex on the nurse with my skibbity RZ, but she told me I was tweaking. Told her I stand for how G her cranium is, but my vibe check got ratioed. Just oh big oof." "Hang on, there's something wrong with my translator," Syak said, reaching up to check the metal circlet around his head. Locke sighed and shook his head. "There's nothing wrong with your translator." Ever since coming back from his last info dive into the human internet, Vidic talks like this. Locke tilted his head and stared at his fellow. "I think he just said he hit on the nurse, and she rejected him." "Rejected?" "Terrans are a race of clones with no—" "Well, I thought your kind didn't hit on anything," Syak said. "We don't, but humans do," Locke said. He turned back to Vidic and spoke louder. "Vidic, you're a Terran. Terrans don't reproduce with pair bonds." Vidic offered Locke a thin-lipped scowl. Cringe. "That's so last year. When I'm done looks-maxing my aura, it'll be so peak, I'll Netflix and chill with that girl boss. No cap." "What's wrong with him?" Syak asked. "Why can't he communicate normally?" "Because of the memes," Locke sighed. "They crawl throughout his brain, and when he tries to speak, he can't help but let them out. He might even think he's a human now, or at least partly human." "I have a human sona," Vidic mumbled. "Not like you basic jits." "What does that even mean?" Syak asked, towering over the little alien. "How did you get like this, little Terran? What did you see?" "Got a rare invite for a litnet party that made me a main character," Vidic said. He suddenly broke into a fit of giggles. "You give off such NPC energy." "Speak normally," Syak said, his request ending with a low growl. "Investigator, please." He can't. Locke tried to place a calming hand on Syak's arm but was immediately shaken off. "Speak normally." Syak demanded again. "Sussy NPC here," about to act out of pocket, Vidic mumbled before being grabbed by the shoulders and hoisted into the air. "Speak." "Speak normally," Syak shouted, shaking the little gray humanoid roughly. Vidic's big head lolled around on his neck like a jellied noodle. When it rolled around to face Syak, he simply grinned. "Okay, boomer." Syak extended his claws and drew back his arm for a blow that never came as Locke and Lug both pulled him back. Their combined strength could never hold him off, of course, but it was enough to make him snap back to his senses. His claws retracted, and he unceremoniously dropped the insane Terran to the floor. I have no idea why that was so enraging, but it was, Syak admitted as Locke guided the three out of the cell, which automatically locked behind them. "It seems to have that effect on people," Locke said. "One of the reasons he was confined to the cell, though I have to admit I've never seen it work so fast before. Perhaps the GU have a vulnerability to the meme's after effects. Perhaps we simply do not suffer fools as easily as the Terrans." Syak replied. "So this is what you were worried about, some sort of gibberish language that affects the behavior of those exposed to it. If only that was all," Locke said. "That was only one form of meme. There are others with differing effects. Nap is just down the hall. He's coated the walls of his cell with drawings he's made non-stop since returning. The words he uses are fine, but it's the subjects that are concerning. He won't stop talking about fictional alien women. He calls them his waifus from stories mentioned on the internet. You see, it's not just the memes, but what birthed them, the Earthlings' culture." "Culture?" Syak sniffed. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything. Culture is an afterthought to most of us in the Alliance, even more so for the core Union. We've put all our energies into pulling apart the mysteries of the universe, developing machines based on the secrets we learn, and of course fighting each other. The humans do all that. Certainly, but they've put more energy into turning inward, into pulling themselves apart and examining the pieces. But also in just playing with the pieces. Playing with the pieces? Yes, they think about what can't be instead of what is. The number of human stories, pieces of art and songs in their network is astounding, far in excess of the cultural output of the rest of the Alliance combined. Not all of it is so introspective, but much of it is, even if the creators didn't intend it to be so. Much of the human race looks inward, while we of the Spinward Alliance have been looking outward.